Are we live already? Hey, we are live already. All right, everybody. Give me a second here. I'm going to give my man a little tug. Get my headphones put away. And I think that's all we need to get started with. All right, everybody. We got Winston, Holly, hello. Eugene, hello. Let's get set up on all live chat. And then we can get started with the evening. All right, hello to you guys and hello to everybody out there that's lurking who is not saying anything. Looks like we got a few of you out there that haven't chimed in and said hello yet. That's all right. You're not required to speak or text. And I don't really have anything on the agenda for tonight. I was thinking about some topics of conversation we could have and that sort of thing. And I never really did come up with a whole lot of anything worth talking about. We can talk a little bit about my 55. I've noticed, you know how I put the canister filters in the plastic containers in case they leak. I noticed yesterday morning when I came down and turned the lights on, or possibly when I turned them off last night, I just noticed there's some water in that container now. And it probably just means that it's getting a little backed up. And when the pressure builds up on the inside, the O-rings that seal those little Sun canister filters, they're not high pressure O-rings. They're just meant to keep water from leaking, provided that water is flowing at a normal water pressure through there. Once the pressure starts building up, it bypasses those O-rings pretty easily. And I've had the experience in the past where something similar has happened, where the outflow was not flowing properly and it caused back pressure within the unit and it just leaked. As soon as I cleaned it, it was fine again. So that is the one filter that was not done. If you'll remember, I let all my canister filters sit for a year before I changed them. And that one did not get changed. So that has been now running untouched for a year and 2 months. So 14 months I've gone without even touching that filter. At some point, I will probably get in there and open it up and see what's going on, get it cleaned out. If it's anything like the last ones I did, it's not going to be worth getting on camera. I got all the other stuff on camera. I shot video of 2 different of those canister filters that I opened after a whole year and just decided not to even post them because it was such a letdown. Again, I was joking, referring to it as being like the big revelation of Al Capone's vault, if you're old enough to remember that big fiasco where they hyped it and hyped it and hyped it. And when they finally opened it, it was full of dirt. It was just completely empty. There was like a couple of old broken bottles or something in there from back in the 20s or something. And that's all they found in Al Capone's vault. And the reporter, a guy named Geraldo Rivera, who's still around, that was going to be like his big thing. He hyped that, and he was there live, and he was, going to reveal the whole big secrets. And, they would cut the commercial break right as they were knocking the bricks away. And there was some fucking sealed off room they found in one of the speakeasies he used to own or something. And they were going to open it up on live TV and see what was inside of it. Was it going to be skeletons? Was it going to be money? Nope, it's going to be fucking nothing. It was nothing, absolutely nothing. And he had to just stand there on live TV like, wah, wah. Sorry, everybody. I know I've been hyping this shit up for 6 fucking months or whatever it was, but there's nothing in here except dirt. God, you could hear the collective groan of disappointment go across the entire country. Does anybody remember that other than me? Did that really happen? I think it happened. Pretty sure I remember Al Capone's vault. All right, I'm still working on a bowl I packed earlier, although now that I'm crunching it with my finger, it feels like it's getting down there. This is Blue Dream with Blue Dream. Hey, Cornish. Yeah, I was going to say somebody in here's got to be old enough to remember Al Capone's vault. That was like a cultural touchstone. Like if you were there and in that era and you remember that moment, like everybody fucking remembers Al Capone's vault. That was such a fiasco. All right, let's give them some of the flake food tonight. I did, if you were here for Friday night, I had talked about, I saw a vape product, which was a mushroom product, a mushroom vape. And you could apparently like do micro doses by puffing on it. And on Friday night, I had been talking about it in terms of not probably being that interested in it. It's kind of like those little pens. You get such a little hit off of them that I basically have to just sit there and continually puff on it. And it would be like trying to drink beer out of a little teeny tiny straw. Like by the time you're getting enough beer in you to get drunk, the first stuff you drank like an hour ago has already been processed through your system and's gone. And you can never get ahead of yourself and just never get, your buzz on because it's just being processed out of your body as fast as you're putting it in your body. Hang on, my microphone just came flying off. I sent you guys around the room. Hang on. So for that reason, I don't like those little vape pens. They just don't really cut it for me. And I was kind of thinking that this microdosing of the mushroom would be the same thing. Like I'd have to sit there and puff on it until I felt sick before I would finally start feeling some kind of, psychedelic effect. And it's not like that at all. It's made by the same company that made that chocolate bar. And they say 1 or 2 puffs is for like a day at work, 3 or 4 puffs, and it's a day at the beach kind of sensation. And anything over like 5 or 6 puffs, and you're, on the moon, and you're going to have like a good hard trip. So if that's the case, I'm interested in that. I ordered one. It's got 2 grams of juice in it, which will, if that's all it's going to take is 7 or 8 hits for me to be like loopy on the moon tripping. That's a lot of fucking trips in one of those little cartridges because it's roughly 800 puffs to what 80 trips. So I find it a little dubious. I'm a little dubious. I'm going to 80 trips out of it. But it's probably more potent than I'm giving it credit for, and I can regulate how much I want to trip. It's tough with the chocolate bars and the mushrooms and stuff. You really don't know how much you're eating. You really don't know what's gonna, the impact's gonna be until much later. With the puffing, it's gonna be like instantaneous. It's gonna bump me up to the next level, and I'm gonna be all right. This is where I am, and I can stop whenever I want. Just get to whatever level I want to be. And then the real selling point for me was that they said that it comes on really fast, but it also doesn't last very long. You're looking at 2 or 3 hours and you're going to be coming down on the other side of it, which is fucking perfect. That's exactly what I want. My only complaint about that chocolate bar I ate on Friday is it was so long lasting. I went to bed at 1 a.m. and I was still tripping. That 10 hours after I ate that candy bar, I was still tripping off of those mushrooms. So that was a bit much. That was a little more of a commitment than I really thought I was putting into that. I thought it was going to be a 4 or 5 hour ride like it is when you just eat the mushrooms themselves. But whatever they did to that candy bar, however they made it, or whatever strain of mushrooms they used in it, that shit lasted fucking forever. It was like 10 hours of tripping off of that candy bar. So that was the last I've done. Last Friday night, I didn't eat any yesterday. I had like a psychedelic hangover all day yesterday. And then today I've been feeling just kind of groggy and out of it. I took a bunch of muscle relaxers before I went to bed last night. The upshot is my shoulder's feeling a hell of a lot better. The downshot is, as always, with those muscle relaxers, they just wreck my next day. I'm just groggy and tired. And so that's been today. Hey, Frankie, how are you? And so that's basically the update on where we are now. No tripping tonight. Oh, thank you. Fangs Southwest, Fangs. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's where I stand. I'm definitely we're not tripping tonight. I don't think I'm going to do any more live trips anyway. I mean, if people really fucking had a good time or really want to do that again, and I get enough people asking me to do it, maybe, I'll consider it again. It's not out of the question, especially once I get the vape thing and I can do regulated smaller doses. And, we might have a little fun with that at some point. But I don't know. I feel like that was a one of those diminishing returns thing. It was cool the first night we did it. It was kind of okay the second night we did it. And then last Friday night, honestly, I didn't really have that good of a time. I was tripping a little harder than I wanted to be going into the live stream. I got a little weirded out a couple of times, but because I'm a fucking professional, I just powered through. I took my own advice. Like I always say, like when you start getting weirded out, just fucking don't. It's just the fucking trip. Just ignore it. So I did have a couple points last Friday night where I was getting a little sketchy. It was like I was tripping pretty hard on 6 squares of that chocolate. They weren't fucking kidding about their dosage. Man, that would be rough to accidentally eat one of those thinking it's a candy bar and not realizing what it was, because you would just eat the whole thing like it's a candy bar. When I was a kid, those little squares like on the Hershey bar, that was like people would unwrap the candy bar, they'd slide it out of the sleeve, they'd unfold the paper, they'd break off a square or two, and that was what they would enjoy. They'd fold it up and they'd put it back on the shelf for tomorrow or for later or whatever. They had their little squares of chocolate. You didn't eat the whole fucking bar at one go. Like that was ridiculous. Like that's why it was segmented into those little squares like that. But by now, nowadays we don't think like that. We just think you eat the candy bar. And so if somebody ever got a hold of that, not knowing what it was, it wouldn't taste funny to them. They wouldn't take a bite and go, oh, this tastes off. I'm not going to eat it. They would just eat it. It was a delicious milk chocolate bar. That's all it tasted like, was delicious milk chocolate. Somebody would eat that whole fucking bar, and then they would have a crazy, crazy fucking 12 hours ahead of them. Because I can't imagine what eating that whole bar would have been like after. I didn't even eat half of it. I only ate 6 out of the 15. So I still have 9 squares left. I'm debating whether to eat all 9 at once or break it up into 2 medium trips or break it up into 3 small trips. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. All I know is that after Friday night, I felt like I needed a break. You can't do psychedelics the way you do weed. You can smoke weed every damn day of your life. You can't do psychedelics like that. It'll wreck your fucking brain if you do psychedelics all the time. So I definitely need a break. We'll see what the weather does the rest of the week. I got to work tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday. And then I think Thursday and Friday it's supposed to get rainy again. So we'll see. All right, making our way around the room. We're going to start with some granules. I don't have too many small fish in this tank anymore, but I've noticed that the silver dollars, the angelfish, of course, will come get them. But I've also noticed that my geo in there, the pearl cichlid, also has taken to eating food other than just the algae wafers. It'll eat the flakes and the granules and stuff. Hey, Mary. Hey, JP. How are you? Hello. All right, I need to get a warm-up act to get you guys warmed up so that by the time I get here, you're actually saying stuff and talking or whatever. God, you make me get you so much work on these live streams. All right, we freshly opened a package of the Hikari algae wafers. I always just put some in a smaller container so it's a little more manageable than that huge sack of algae wafers. You see that cichlid right up there up front? He's getting much more aggressive with making sure he gets his algae wafers. He's starting to get really big. I had said before that I got him like a year ago. He was born a year ago, and he was born last March. I want to say not last March, the previous March or something. And I got him in February of this month. So I've only had him for about 7 or 8 months. But I think he is about 2 years old total now. I got the date written down. I got his birthday date written down and the date I received him. A lot of people say that jewel cichlid's really big. I've never had a jewel cichlid before, so I don't know if they're big or not. And if you can see, well, you can't really see, but off to the right here, Flo is going after my pleco in there like crazy because she is spawning right now. She's back there on her rock laying eggs. And she's trying to chase everybody away from her end of the tank. So watch her for a minute and see if she doesn't go back to laying eggs. You see that really sort of bright white area right where she's sitting? Those are all her eggs on that rock. And look, she's going right back to laying some more. Yeah, see, there she goes. So she does that every so often. Of course, she doesn't have a male in the tank with her. She's alone. So those eggs are just, you know, slugs. They're not going to do anything. Steve, you made it. I don't know. Weeds about sharing. I don't know about chocolate. Yeah, the way they talk about jewel cichlids, I thought like maybe you could almost get away with one in like a 20 long or something, maybe a 30 long. There's no way I'd want the jewel cichlid I've got in a 30 long. Now, the other side of that coin is maybe if I'd raised it in a 30 long, it wouldn't be the size it is now, but it's spent its life growing up in a 125. And so, you know, it's been well fed and had plenty of room to grow since day one. So maybe that's got something to do with it. Arc Knight, you made it. All right, so following along with my story, last night I did the deed. I bought the vape, and it got me close enough that I only needed like $45 more to get free shipping, or else I was going to have to pay like $15 in shipping anyway. And I'm a sucker for that kind of brain hacking treachery. It's advertising. It's a way to get you to upsell, et cetera, et cetera. But it fucking works. It works on me a lot. And but it's also I'm still also getting a deal. Just the real what it breaks down to is like, did I have $100 to spend? You know, not really, but I was spending. You know, I would have spent 75 on shipping and everything to just get the vape. This way, I spent 100. But instead of just getting the vape, I also got the vape and I got a bottle of um, I think I got the grape flavored. No, berry fizz. I got some kind of syrup. Like 1 teaspoon of syrup if you stir it into your soda, or if you just take a little tiny sip of the syrup by itself. It's like a sweet syrup. You can pour it on your ice cream. You can mix it in, you know, whatever drink you want. And apparently it's really potent. And they say to be really careful with it. Is when you first start out, take a very small amount, see what that does to you before you do any more. And so I have a bottle of that ordered. I think it's I actually don't know how big the bottle is. I didn't even look at the size of it now that I'm thinking. I know it's 50 mil for a dose, like 1 teaspoon for a dose. But I don't know how many doses actually came in the thing. But I can look that up while you guys are enjoying the view over there. All right, let's see. Shop. We're going to shop for gummies, chocolate, day tripper. All right, let's. Oh, this is not even the same fucking page. What am I on this page for? Oh. I got my stuff directly from I'm calling it the Treehouse. I think it's called Treehouse. I got mine directly from their website. But if you go to other websites that sell these products, a lot of them sell the Treehouse products. And that's what I did. I just clicked on the product instead of the actual website. So the Treehouse website itself actually does chocolate bars, gummies, vapes, and syrup. The bottles are 1,000 milligrams. That's a liter. Jesus, I got a liter of fucking mushroom juice. Oh, that's a lot. Let's see, which one did I get? Did I get the bussin? I either got bussin berry. Yeah, it must have been bussin berry because it's either bussin berry, purple stuff, or watermelon felon. So, oh no, this is a Delta 9. Okay, this is not the same stuff. I don't want Delta 9. Why am I looking at Delta 9? Because it says THC syrup right on there. Where the fuck is the mushroom stuff? God damn it. I didn't even realize they sold THC syrup. All right, let's see. Magic mushroom syrups. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with this. Maybe, maybe I do. All right, there we go. That's we got Galaxy Grape or Strawberry Gelato. I think I got the Strawberry Gelato now that I'm thinking about it. And it is. Does it tell you how much is in the damn bottle? Must be 21. 4 ounces. 118.3 mil. Yeah, when I saw the 1,000 milliliter, I was like, holy shit, that's a fucking liter of mushroom juice. I did not get a liter of mushroom juice. I got 4 ounces, 4 fluid ounces of mushroom juice. So that's still quite a lot considering a little sip is enough to get you a nice little buzz on. 5 mil is a teaspoon. Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say. I was waiting for you to be here, Steve, because I didn't want to be talking shit about you while you weren't here. I'm not actually going to talk shit about you, but I am going to talk about what you were telling me the other night. When I first told Steve that I had gotten this mushroom chocolate bar, you know, I'm assuming because it was through text and it's kind of hard to, you know, hear sounds and stuff through text, at least before you eat the mushrooms. I could just hear him saying like, whatever. And he pointed out that a buddy of his had gotten a chocolate bar once, and he said like the whole entire chocolate bar was about the equivalent of like a gram of mushrooms. So like even if you eat the whole chocolate bar, it's really not that big of a deal. You're not really going to trip that hard. So at first I was thinking, well, fuck, man, let's just eat half of it and see what happens. And then I thought, no, I think instead of listening to Steve, I'm gonna go ahead and go by what the instructions on the package say. And the instructions on the package say, 1 to 3 is a day at the office, 3 to 6 is a day at the beach, and 7 or more is a day on the moon. And so I ate 3, and after an hour and a half, I was definitely tripping more than I would have fucking ever wanted to be tripping in the office all day. That would not have been fun. And so I ate 3 more, and by the time the live stream started, I had 6 of them in me for a couple of hours, and I was still going up. My trip was still building as we went live, and I'm not going to say I tripped balls. It wasn't a hard, intense trip or anything like that, but it was more than I wanted to be tripping during the live stream. Like I said, there were a couple times during the live stream where I got a little weird and uncomfortable and a little in my head. It was pretty intense for fucking 6 squares, and it lasted forever. Like I'm used to acid lasting 12 or 15, 18 hours. Like I'm not used to mushrooms lasting like that. And I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, and my brain was still tweaking. Like I definitely could still feel the mushrooms in my brain at 1 in the morning when I drifted off. Now it didn't prevent me from sleeping or anything like that. I did get a pretty good night's sleep. But still, those things packed a fucking wallop. That 6 squares was no joke, I'm telling you. So if you do buy the Treehouse products, trust their labeling and start slow. They even say in there, when you're reading on their website about how to take their products and stuff like that, they always recommend, they stress going slow and building up to it. They said it's always easier to take more. You can't untake stuff you've already taken if you took too much, So you can always add to it, but you cannot reduce from it. So be careful going into it. And they're not kidding, man. Their shit's potent. I still want to make that run down to DC. You up for a road trip to DC one day, Steve? I keep thinking about whether that makes sense to make that a road trip with you, though, because if you were to come here and then we went down there together, that would be a really roundabout lot of driving for you. Although just driving here would be your driving part. We'd take my truck and then we'd go all the way. We'd just shoot straight down 97, and it's almost it takes you almost right straight to the front door of the place if you just go down 97. So I thought we could make a road trip out of that, get some video. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to video inside the mushroom store. Oh, there you go, Cornish. It's interesting. I haven't even thought about mushrooms really in years until last week, and now I'm thinking about them a lot. Obviously, not only has it been like interestingly therapeutic for me, I don't feel as depressed as I did. My thoughts aren't racing as much. There's been some other aspects of my life that have, just seemed to be flowing a little more smoothly and working better. And reading about them and shopping for them, I'm seeing all these different strains, and there's different varieties of mushrooms, and people are crossing strains with each other, and there's certain strains that are becoming like well known to like the way we talk about like the AK-47s are really good weed or whatever. Apparently one of the most potent strains of mushrooms out there is called penis envy, which annoys the shit out of me. I hate when they give stupid names to these things. But albino penis envy is amazing, apparently. Intense visuals, and they breed these mushrooms, they're developing some, like if you want more of a cerebral effect or you want more of a visual effect. Some are made to be more potent, some less potent. There's one brand out there, or one strain out there, called the Blue Meanies, and I wonder why they call it the Blue Meanies. I'm assuming it's got a lot of blue in it. It's a really purpley blue mushroom, but I'm wondering why they call it meanie. Is it like what is that trip like? I'm curious to try the Blue Meanies. Yeah, I assumed it would be after you got back from vacation, Steve. I used to have a bunch of hatchet fish in this tank, but one by one, they all found the little tiny slot in the back and managed to jump through it, like throwing coins at a fucking piggy bank. And sooner or later, you're going to get lucky and one of those coins is going to go in. There was a little slit in the back where the plastic covering was open, and I'd always tape it up, and the tape would fall off, and just little by little, a lot of them jumped out of there. I actually have a lot of the dried. If you look on the shelf right here, I have a lot of dried potato chip looking things. Those are all hatchet fish. Very, very desiccated hatchet fish. One-ounce shots. Just do shots of the stuff. I think they're saying that a 50 milliliters is a dose. So I don't know if they said, oh, did I already close that page out again? Of course I did. So I can just read. What it was saying. I didn't even realize they have a whole THC section. They sell the syrup and the vapes and all kinds of stuff here. All I did was the mushrooms. They do THC gummies, syrup, THC pre-rolls, vapes, carts, and 7-hydroxy, whatever that is. I don't even know what 7-hydroxy is. But they do mushroom chocolate bars, gummies, syrups, and vape pens. So let's see what it says about the syrup. I'll read it to you. Actually, let me move you to the next tank here real quick. And then I'll read you all their advertising jargon about what it says you can expect. Actually, I'm here. I'll just go ahead and read it. Let me put my eyeballs on so I can read it without squinting. All right, our red strawberry gelato magic mushroom syrup is packed with a fruity punch and a potent psychotropic mushroom kick. These syrupy wonders will have you soaring through the cosmos in no time. You might be wondering, how do you pack all that into one little bottle? Wizards in the lab mix up a blend of blah, 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 mushrooms, high quality ingredients, flavor explosion, blah, 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 proprietary mushroom extracts. It's like a psychotropic party in your mouth. All right, is there stuff more than that? Okay, directions. All right, so you got your hands on some strawberry gelato, blah, blah, blah. Just pop open the bottle and pour a teaspoonful into your drink of choice. Now, we're not saying you can't sip this straight. It's delish. But mixing it with soda, now that's the ticket to flavor. Here's the deal, though. The product packs a pretty big punch, like cosmic uppercut straight to the dome. So when you're diving into that cutesy fucking talk really gets old fast. So when you dive into this syrupy mushroom goodness for the first time, take it slow. Start with a tiny sip, kick back, and give it 15 to 45 minutes to do its thing. Feeling good, awesome, enjoy the ride. Not quite enough. Well, if you've waited an hour or so and you're still jonesing for a little more oomph, I think jonesing is probably the wrong word there. Then take another little sip, rinse and repeat until you reach the perfect level, etc., etc. I saw something on here about 5 milligrams or 50 milligrams. I swear I did anyway. Warning, magic mushroom syrups may cause psychotropic effects. Yeah, that's all that's really actually worth reading here. They do not ship to the following states: Alabama, D.C., Minnesota, North Carolina, North Dakota, Texas, Utah, or Vermont. So if you live in any of those states, you are shit out of luck with the treehouse. I don't like gummies, and so I didn't order the gummies. I thought the chocolate bar would be a novel idea. I've never tried chocolate mushroom bars before. Of course, I've never tried anything. I've never eaten mushrooms any other way than just eating mushrooms at any point in my life until Friday. I made tea out of it for the first time. I'd never made mushroom tea before, and that worked really well. In the future, I will not be chewing on fucking nasty-ass mushrooms ever again unless I bump into somebody out in the woods or something, and they're like, "Oh, I got some mushrooms. You want them?" And then sure, I'll be eating mushrooms. But it comes to, like, if I've got mushrooms and I've got, the ability to make tea here at the house, it will get made into tea before I just chew on those fucking mushrooms again. Blah. And the tea packed way more of a punch than the times when I just ate them raw. I think that's because I didn't chew them up very well. I just kind of got them mushy enough to swallow them and then swallowed them. And I think if I had just broken them and smashed them up into mush with my teeth, I probably would have extracted a lot more of the psilocybin and psilocin. But I extracted all of that shit when I made it into tea, and it worked really well. The tea was surprisingly good. It went down just as smooth as could be. I had no digestional issues. It hit me within about 20 to 25 minutes. I could feel it start rolling onto me. It was it was already water. It was dissolved into water, and I drank it on an empty stomach. So it was just mushroom tea in my stomach, and that shit impacted me quick. I'm throwing some algae wafers in here tonight. It's been a while since I've done so. Most of them are going to get gobbled up by the Raphael as soon as he gets his little whiskers on them. See, all this talk about mushrooms makes me want to eat some now, but I don't want to because it's way too late at night to start the fucking journey with those damn chocolate bars. If they weren't so long lasting, if I thought it would be over by midnight, or 1 o'clock, I'd go ahead and do it, but not tonight. New Hack Gardening, how are you this evening? And I'm debating whether or not I should rename my channel to Dan's Den of Iniquity. That would probably be a better Oh, debauchery would be even better because we could stick with the alliteration. Dan's debaucherous den. Dan's den of debauchery. Nah, I like the Dan's debaucherous den. All right, doing a dab of Blue Dream this time. I'm doing a huge fucking dab of Blue Dream. Jeez Louise. Is that really necessary? I think not. We can make sure the fan is turned on in the other room. Double D's. Wouldn't Dan's debaucherous den be a triple D? All right, let me double check. All right, we got the fan blowing now. Pull some air out of the room. I still have no idea why that smoke detector went off the other night. I hadn't even been smoking when it went off. That could have been just the universe fucking with me because I was tripping. Anytime you're ever tripping, like weird shit always happens to you. It's just Dan's magical den. I can update you on the seasonal change. We are coming towards the end of the dog days. I always like to talk about the dog days of summer when we're in the dog days of summer because so many people have no idea what the hell that means and misunderstand the term, etc., etc. So since we're in the dog days of summer, and I was actually just looking it up this morning to find out when they end, the dog days of summer are defined specifically as the days when you can see a star called Sirius. It's known as the dog star, hence the dog days. When you can see Sirius in the sky just before the sun comes up, those are the dog days. And it's about a 40-day period that happens around mid-July and goes into August, or early July, maybe the first week in July and goes into August. And it comes from the Roman. I don't remember what the actual pronunciation would be, but it translated originally literally to days of the dog. And so now we just say the dog days, but I like days of the dog better. Let's find out exactly what the dates are. Computer, what are the dates for the dog days this year?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the dates for dog days are July 3rd, 2023, August 11th, 2023.
Okay, well, that's not current for this year, and it fluctuates by a couple of days every year, so you get the idea. It's the first week of July to about mid-August is when the dog days are. And they are often associated with the hottest part of the year. Yeah, I can't imagine a company doing hair testing. I honestly don't think it should be legal that they can do drug testing. I mean, if it's for a drug that is like alcohol or something that's affecting you at the moment and you're exhibiting behavior at work or you have an accident or something like that, that's fine. But I was a truck driver, and for me, if I was involved in an accident, not necessarily causing it, if I was involved in an accident, I had to be drug tested within 24 hours by federal law. And so if someone hit me, I was getting drug tested. And they test for marijuana. And, you know, it's been the scam forever. The insurance companies will do it. So even if a company doesn't want to test for marijuana because they say who cares, it's not reliable, et cetera, the insurance companies will say, fine, we're not going to insure you unless you drug test your employees. And so that's been a fight that's been going around and around forever. I'm actually going to go rinse this off real quick. It's got a bunch of gunk on it. And there are still companies now here in America, and it's causing problems that once marijuana was, made legal for medical reasons, you had a whole bunch of people that might get drug tested at work that say, look, I got a note from my doctor. I have a medical, I wasn't high at work. I smoke a little bit every night before I go to bed. It helps me sleep. I have a doc, I'm legally buying this. But you still lose your job because the job says you can't take that medication. What if you don't like the heart medication I'm taking? Or more appropriately, what if the fucking insurance company doesn't like the heart medication I'm taking? Do I have to stop taking my medication? So that's a real argument. That's a legit argument. The doctor says this is my medicine. Now, I think that's bullshit. It's obviously not medicine in the traditional sense where you go to the pharmacy and get a prescription and all that. But if we're going to play the game that this is medicine and this is legal, then how can a fucking employer tell their employee, no, you can't take the medicine your doctor told you to take, or you get fired? That's a legit issue. That's a real question. When it comes to doing stuff like driving trucks and flying airplanes and stuff like that, it runs into all kinds of other issues about, how long it's in your system and federal regulations versus state regulations. Because remember, federal regulations still says marijuana is illegal. Most states just ignore that and do their own thing anyway. But federal regulation says marijuana is still illegal. They moved it on the schedule, but it didn't decriminalize it. They just moved it into a different category on the schedule. So now if you get in trouble for it, the penalties aren't as severe as they were before. But that's about all they did. It was just a bullshit. Again, it was another little move to appease people without actually really accomplishing anything or changing the status quo in any way. And so we still have states like Maryland where it's perfectly legal, even for recreational use. And yet, if I were to get drug tested at my job, I can't argue like, hey, I was partying on Saturday night. I'm allowed to do that. It's legal. Well, you got THC in your system. I'm firing you. You're not allowed to have THC in your system. So it's kind of a conundrum. It's been interesting over the last decade or so. I'll say that. There's an old ancient Chinese curse that says, may you live in interesting times. And we certainly are. Hey, Riley. Yep, no argument there. Yep, exactly, Mary. I didn't want to say that because I didn't want to make the assumptions. But every time I've ever spoken with somebody about the dog days, their assumption was that they call them the dog days because you just want to lie around like a hot dog in the shade, being panting because it's just so gross and hot. But the dog days are actual official days where a star can be seen in the sky, and it just usually coordinates with what typically used to be the hottest part of the year. Now, who fucking knows? But traditionally, the month of July and into August, which again, we're talking about the ancient Romans that named this. Here on the East Coast of Maryland, we don't really move into the gross hot weather till the end of July through August and then into September. And, the latter part of September, the weather will start cooling down. But, even in September, the beginning of September is still summer and it's fucking hot and muggy and gross. September is not that sort of autumnal month that a lot of people seem to think it is here on the East Coast. September is really hot and gross and muggy coming in. They say March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. September's sort of the other way around. It comes in, you start September just fucking sweating, hot, gross, muggy weather. And by the end of September, you're in nice, pleasant 70-degree days. And, you're sliding out of summer and moving into the cooler weather. So September's a pretty good month. I'm not a big fan of the fall. I mean, compared to spring. If I had to pick my seasons, it would be spring, summer, fall, and then winter can just go fucking pound sand. Shirley, how are you this evening? Yeah, if you've got federal contracts with a company, or if you work for a company that has a federal contract, you're absolutely getting drug tested. Yeah, exactly, Cornish. That's the whole point. Yep, you can do as much coke as you want on Friday night and pass a drug test Monday morning. But if you smoke a joint, you got a fucking week to worry about it after that. Janice! How have you been? I'm not a huge fan of March. I like March because March lets me know we're moving out of the winter, but we still have cold weather around here well past March. We might start getting some nice days, but we've had snow, well into April here before. So I'm more of a May, June kind of guy. Those are my two favorite months is May and June, probably in that order. And then September, then probably October, November, then December, like the fucking January, February, March, they can go pound sand too. Except for the tail end of March. I can live with the tail end of March. But that wintry beginning bullshit of it, no, thank you. And we are doing the Vibra Bites tonight. I got a bag of a big sack of Vibra Bites recently, and I put them in my little container over here, but I never wrote Vibra Bites on it. And so it's just been a white container sitting here. And I thought it was like some old shit that I just don't use anymore. And so tonight's the first night we're actually feeding the fish with the Vibra Bites that I got. Probably the night I put them in the container, we fed them the Vibra Bites. But that was last week. We still go through a little bit of an Indian summer around here. If you're not familiar with the term Indian summer, it's like this weird period where summer's well over. You've started to move into autumn. You're definitely in the cooling weather. The leaves on the trees might even be starting to change. And then there'll be just a strange week or two where you just get nice warm weather again. And then it gets cold after that. And that little warming period before you sort of take the plunge into winter has always been known as Indian summer. I'm not really even sure why that happens every year, but it does seem to be very cyclical, that it starts to get cold, warms back up, and then it gets really cold. As you go into December, like then you're starting to get snow and stuff like that. Again, that's how it's traditionally been. I don't know if we still get, those kind of seasons and seasonal shifts the way we used to. Who knows what it does anymore? It's a mad, 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 mad world. And if you guys haven't seen that movie, it's worth the watch. And yes, that is a movie. It's called It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. 4 mads. Yeah, exactly. February and beginning of March was when you got blizzards. And then by the end of March, there was sunshine and flowers. Man, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I want to eat one of them chocolate bars, but it's way too late. All right, I'll go pack up a bowl, Winston. I'll join you with that. Try not to do too many dabs. The problem is I slept a lot today and just feeling so groggy and out of it that it's 9 o'clock and I feel like I'm just starting to wake up, and I'm probably gonna be up all night anyway. Do I want to spend all of that time tripping in my office watching YouTube videos? I mean, I guess when you're tripping, you can do anything. Again, I've seen people sit in closets for hours while they were tripping because they liked the darkness or whatever. I wanted to go outside the other night and have some night tripping experience on the night of my that marathon that never ended. Friday, it was midnight. Live stream was over. And I wanted to just go outside and walk around and listen to all the night noises. I get a lot of night noises out here, night chorus. If you're not familiar with seeing like my yard tours and you don't know about like where I live in my neighborhood and whatnot, I basically live in the woods. I could be like a cabin in the woods. It's not like deep in the woods. You know, I do have neighbors, but at this time of year, you can't see their houses. Like there's so much stuff and brush and undergrowth and trees and, you know, sort of woodsy areas between our houses that, you know, you got to wait till winter before you can actually see the neighbors. And we've got a pond across the street. We've got a stream across the street. We've got owls that nest up in the tree, the dead tree behind our house. We got tree frogs galore around here. Of course, there's all the night insects and so on and so forth. And when you go outside at night, it's fucking loud. And if you go outside in the springtime, when the spring peepers are gone, it's fucking loud, loud. Like we can't sleep at night in the springtime because the peepers are so loud. If it's a nice night and we have the windows open because it's nice and cool, our window faces the pond across the street, and it's like somebody sticking needles in your ear all night with the peeping. And so we usually on those nights will close the windows and just turn the AC on because it's the only way we can get to sleep over the damn frogs across the street. So going outside at night is, you know, it's an experience in itself around here. And we got an acre of property I can wander around on. Yeah, that's the old Spencer Tracy movie. Exactly. Dog Days in the Water? No, I haven't heard of Dog Days in the Water. I like the song Mad World too, Mary. And if you want to listen to a fantastic version of Mad World, listen to Postmodern Jukebox's version. You'll be terrified at first because there's a giant singing clown, but close your eyes if you have to or whatever. Overlook the fact that it's a clown. The dude's got a golden, amazing voice. He's Puddle's Pity Party. That's the name of the clown. He's Mike somebody or another is the actual guy that plays the clown. But it's amazing. It's like the best version of Mad World ever, in my opinion. I know not everybody likes it. It's done by Postmodern Jukebox, and they do it in a very different style than the original version of Tears for Fears. I think it was Tears for Fears that did the original. Yeah, the crocus is definitely a harbinger of spring. Oh, we had a pretty good spring here, Janice. We got a big bullfrog in the pond right now in my little water feature pond out back. I was looking at him the other day, and as he swam away, I was like, that's good eating on that thing. That's a chunky little frog. If we ever get hungry, I know where to go. Aqua Botany, how are you this evening? No, I've never heard of that, Eugene. I wonder if it's something. Oh, good. Glad to hear it. I wonder if it's something seasonal in the water, like when the waters get to a certain temperature, a particular type of bacteria or amoeba or something like that is able to thrive, and you'll have some sort of bacterial bloom if the temperatures get to a certain degree or something. I don't know. I've never heard of that though. That's interesting. If I remember, I will look it up. Or actually, if you remind me in a minute, I'm going to move the camera to the next tank. I will look it up and see if I can find out anything about dog days in the water. All right, let's put a little more than that in there. Main thing I try to do is get some of them to fall down on this side of the tank so that the discus can get to them without having to be off on the right-hand side of the tank where all of the crazy-ass minnows are dashing around. And I know the glass is filthy. I wipe it down, and within a week, it looks like this again. So we need to get in there and actually do some work. And I was going to say I need to put an air stone in there, but I've got a really good, vigorous air stone already going in there. Maybe we'll do a chemi-clean treatment on that tank. I haven't done a chemi-clean treatment in a long time. But I see some chemi-clean sitting on the floor right there, so we'll do a chemi-clean treatment right now. Oh, I didn't even make any noise when I bent over. Wait a minute, I got something that's already open. Yep, I got some. It's already open. So when you buy the ChemiClean, it comes in these little tiny bottles, and it comes with a little teeny tiny spoon, and you're supposed to put little teeny tiny spoonfuls per 10 gallons. But I never worry about it. I don't think you can really overdose on this. I always just tap some in and make sure it's plenty. That was probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 of those little spoonfuls, 10 of them. I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't fucking matter. It's not going to hurt anything. I will say, if you use the ChemiClean product, it says to put an air stone in the tank. Take that seriously. This product kills the microbial life by oxidizing it, and it uses a lot of oxygen out of the water. And even just having really good, vigorous circulation, you will still deplete your tank of oxygen if you do not have a good, vigorous air stone in there. So anytime you're medicating one of your tanks, you should always just put an air stone in there anyway, because you never know exactly what or how that medication is going to be impacting the biology in the tank. And if it's oxidizing stuff, it will pull that oxygen out of the water and you will kill your fish. Done it. I'm speaking from experience. You have to have an air stone when you're using ChemiClean. So just remember that. I almost listened to Three Dog Night tonight, but I did not. I listened to somebody different tonight. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to be singing that too now. Frog legs taste like chicken. I've had frog legs before. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even know what Zini was talking about. I'm going to go right on past that one. And I'm a professional OnlyFans creator. I still didn't want to touch that one. Is that from your lizard sex party there, Zini? Chief, how are you? Brackish aquarium, the go-to plants are usually Java moss or Java fern, Anubias. You could do moneywort will do okay in brackish water. Duckweed, if you want some floating plants, duckweed will do okay in brackish water if you're not too brackish. And I already said moneywort. I think pennywort will grow in low-end brackish, but I'm not sure about pennywort. What was I listening to, Gene? Or Eugene? I'm not sure what you prefer. Tasted like swamp water. Now, I don't know how. I don't even remember when I had them. I know I had them, but I don't remember how they were prepared or anything. And it was literally like eating a chicken wing, except it had a fucking weird, like the skin on it was different. But as soon as you opened it up, it was just like a chicken wing. It had like the same, stringy sort of muscles in there. And I don't know. Everybody says it tastes like chicken because it's hard to describe the actual flavor of something. It didn't have the texture of chicken. It's definitely a more rubbery sort of texture. It had more of the texture of like clams, like cooked clams, than it did chicken meat. And it wasn't overpowering. It wasn't a really strong flavor or anything. It was all right. I wouldn't eat them like because I enjoyed it. If I was fucking starving and in the swamp somewhere, I'd be eating the shit out of them frog legs. But I'm not gonna like go up to my grocery store and see if they sell them. Oh, damn it. I knew had somebody I was supposed to listen to tonight. Oh, thanks, Shirley. That was my wife's idea. I told you had a damn sex party, lizard sex party going on there, Zany. Yeah, duckweed will definitely grow in brackish water. Heavyweight. Macaroni meatballs, nice. I actually went out and got pit turkey today with the missus, and we got not only did we get the pit turkey. Oh, let me feed this tank too. Did I feed them already? I don't think I fed them already. Not only did we get the pit turkey, but we got a side of the mac and cheese that they make there, and it is it's to die for. It's homemade mac and cheese, but he also mixes in some of the brisket. It's a pit beef or pit meat uh, joint. If you're not familiar with what pit meat is or pit beef, it's literally just an open pit, and it has wood fires burning in it, and there's different areas that are hotter or colder. They usually have a hose in there, and they can spray it with water to damp it down if it gets too hot, but they're literally cooking over open wood fires just over a pit. And you get these huge slabs of meat that they're in there, and it takes all day cooking, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, it's so fucking good. And so we went there today, and we got the pit turkey as a sandwich, but as a side we got the mac and cheese, because he also does brisket. And you can probably get hot dogs and shit like that there, because he throws them on the grill or something stupid like that. Actually, you probably can't get hot dogs there. I don't think he'd waste his fucking time selling hot dogs. He's into his meat, if you get my meaning. He takes that shit seriously. So I don't think he would lower himself to sell hot dogs. But who knows? I've never really looked that closely at the menu. I'll have to check next time I go there. Anyway, he puts some of the brisket in with the mac and cheese, and so it's mac and cheese with meat in it, and oh my god, it is so good. It is so delicious. And so we did that today. In my opinion, the best and tiny interesting fish, probably what I would call a Galaxy Rasbora, but other people call the no, I called it a pearl danio, or it's either the Galaxy Rasbora. If you look at that, it's a tiny little thing. I can't remember the other name that a lot of people call it. That's a good one. I'm a big fan of Endler's guppies. I think they're tiny. They could go in a 5-gallon. Endlers and guppies are always beautiful. Ember tetras are little tiny tetras that are like a orangish red color. They're really pretty, and they're really tiny. They could go in a 5-gallon tank. Oh, she didn't make me change the name. I just asked her what she thought might be a good name, and that was the one she suggested, and I liked it. I've just been moving away from doing the fish keeping stuff, Janice. You haven't been following the drama and the saga over the last several months because you've been absent. You've been on leave. But I've been moving away from doing the fish keeping stuff, and it's been more just hanging out with me in the fish room. But I'm not necessarily talking about fish keeping stuff. I'm talking about other topics. The last several nights, I got a bunch of mushrooms from Steve, and I was tripping on mushrooms for the last few live streams, and just in general, conversations about me being OnlyFans and stuff like that. And I've been having some people, understandably say, like, what the fuck, I thought this was a fish keeping channel, and your name says it's everyday fish keeping, and what, you're tripping on mushrooms, what the fuck's that got to do with fish keeping? They think they're tuning in to hear me explain how to set up their first aquarium or something, and I'm telling them about how I'm eating mushrooms and doing OnlyFans. So I understand why people might have been a little concerned. And so I just figured it was just time to rebrand a little bit, and I wanted a name that would be, I don't want to dismiss the idea that I have a fish room and, all that sort of stuff, because my bread and butter is all the thousands of fish keeping videos I have that are floating around that get rewatched. I don't make money off these live streams, really. This just basically keeps my channel alive. And then the other videos I have floating around out there that are fish keeping videos is where the ad revenue comes in from, what little is left. So I wanted all that. I wanted something that wouldn't say, hey, fuck off fish keeping. But at the same time, I didn't want it to say, hey, this is a fish keeping channel. And, you know, my wife came up with the idea of just calling it Dan's Den. And I thought that's a great idea because it just depends on who you are. You can go from, you know, stuffy old man smoking a pipe and reading the paper in his den all the way to a fucking opium den or a den of iniquity, you know? So it's Dan's Den. We're just hanging out with Dan in my room down here. And if you want to talk about fish, we can talk about fish. Ask me about fish or whatever, but I'm not going to just voluntarily start explaining the fucking nitrogen cycle again when I don't have anything to talk about. I'll talk about something else. Chili rasporas, that's another good one. Yeah, I agree. That was the one and only time the chaps will ever be seen here, I think, unless you guys get me tripping hard enough again, and I'll do something dumb again. I try to keep an air stone. I only have one tank down here that doesn't have an air stone in it, and that's more out of tradition than anything. I used to really, really hate air stones, and I used to say on camera, I said this regularly, if you had to put an air stone in a fish tank in order to keep the fish alive, I wouldn't keep fish anymore. I just would stop doing it. I hated air stones that much. But slowly, over time, out of necessity, I'd use an air stone in this tank or I'd use an air stone in that tank, and I began to see how much better the tanks functioned when they had an air stone in them. And over time, I don't really care for the look, but seeing that reminds me that it's keeping the tank healthy, and so I don't hate the look. But if you'll notice, if we look here at my 125, which we're going to be looking at next in a minute anyway, you see how I've got the air stone really hidden back there? You can barely even tell it's back there unless you sort of look up at the top and see where the bubbles are coming out from behind all the vegetation. I actually have two air stones in this tank, and they're both really big. So if you look through there hard enough all the way into the back, you'll see a bunch of air bubbles going up against the back glass. And so slapping some pads. There's some surprise pad slapping. But if you look all the way in the back there, you will see where I've got plenty of bubbles coming up there. And I got plenty of bubbles coming up over there. But when you just look at the tank from the front, you don't really notice them at all. So I've got the best of both worlds. I'm able to get the air stones in there without really having them look ugly. Looks like we got another flower spike coming up. I guess you can see that bulb in there, or that little flower bud sticking its way up there. That's a big tangled mess. And I just thinned that out not too long ago. So I need to get in here and pull a bunch of plants and stuff out again. It's getting a little too thick. I really need to do something with this. This is supposed to be attached to this piece of wood up here, and it's torn loose. And I've not gotten back in there and reattached it. So the fact that there's some that is still attached to it means if I just remove all of this, that will eventually grow back, and in 6 months we won't even remember that you could see that wood right there. So that's probably what I'll end up doing, is just getting in there and pulling that big loose chunk out and letting the stuff that's currently back there, well, you know, currently still attached to the end of the wood, I'll let it grow back in. All right, let's get these guys fed, and then I will get caught up on some comments, maybe do another dab, and then we will sit down for the evening. And we're sticking with the Viber bites. I really like the Viber bites. I think they're good food. The fish really love them, and the way they swirl and move around the water. If I didn't tell you they were Viber bites, at first glance you'd think I was putting bloodworms in the tank, and the fish go after them in much the same way they go after the bloodworms. They don't sink fast. They swirl around in the water column a lot, so it gives a lot of the fish time to get plenty of them before they do sink. The problem is, if you want a lot of them to get on the bottom for your bottom feeders, you got to really feed heavily because they do take a little bit of time to sink. That's why I like the algae wafers and the granules. I am a big fan of giving my fish a variety of food, but not because of dietary reasons. Most fish food is all basically the same. If you've got specific need fish like predatory fish or carnivore, algae type eating fish. They might need more specific diets. But typically, you'd buy the food for that kind of fish. You'd buy the cichlid pellets, or you'd buy the algae wafers, or whatever. As far as just regular fish food goes, if you're feeding flakes every day or something, and you got your discus and rainbow fish, they could spend their whole entire lives living on whatever decent quality flake food you give them, just the same way your cat can spend its whole life living on its cat food that you give it. In fact, mixing your cat's food up usually will make it sick and give it diarrhea and stuff. You're not supposed to mix your cat's food up. Get them on something that's good for them and they like, and stay there. And the fish are the same way. You don't have to give them granules and this and that, and you're not giving them all the fish foods have all of the ingredients in them. I mix it up because I have different types of fish in the tank. I have some that like to feed off the surface. I have some that feed in the middle. I have some on the bottom. And some days I'll throw in food that floats. Some days I'll throw in food that sinks really fast. Some days I'll throw in food that swirls around in the water column. And that's why I mix it up. I mix it up for the behavior of the food and the fish I'm trying to get the food to, more so than I do the nutritional content of the food. I think they're all fall within a close enough range of each other. If you're using a good, Tetra or Omega-1 or, North Fin, any of the main decent brands, I think are fine. All right, let me get caught up with some of the. What were you talking about me baiting and switching everybody? Where? What happened now? I've never seen the Phoenix or exclamation points. Brian, how are you? Same-sex animal unions are common as cat shit in nature. It happens all the time. Get your slapping pads in. That was just for you, Janice, and it was just for you. All right. Hey, Cecil, how are you this evening? Those rainbow fish do like breach the surface when they're gulping for their floating food, but they are just regular old rainbow fish. They're albinos, and they are millennium rainbows. And the dark orange one is the male, and the two yellow ones are the females. I had 7 originally, but for reasons, several of them died. 4 of them died off years ago. And then the other 3 just kept living and living and living. And so now they're like 7 years old or something. I don't even know how old they are. But they're pretty old, I think, for rainbow fish. I don't know how old millennium rainbow fish are supposed to live. Let's check since I'm standing right here. All right, 5 to 8 years according to the AI, which may or may not be accurate. This says 5 to 8 years on average. Though some reportedly kept them alive for up to 13 to 15 years. So mine are getting right up there. They're definitely on the upper end of their age limit. They're not 8 yet, I don't think, but they're definitely more than 5. I would guesstimate they're probably about 7. Oh, nice, Cecil. Yeah, they don't seem to be slowing down. But if 8 years is the upper end of their normal lifespan, I'd still say they're within that. I know when my Tenopoma died, the Tenopoma is supposed to be like 5 to 7 years, and he was over 10. So he lived several years longer than what it said on the box. And I don't know. I don't put too much weight into that. Like they say with angelfish, they can live up to 10 or 12 years or something, depending on where you read. And I generally find angelfish live 7 or 8. I've never had an angelfish live past 10. I don't even think I've had an angelfish get to 10. All right, I'm just knocking my old weed out of my bowl in here. I should have done it in there where the ashtray is. I brought my candy bar wrapper down here in case anybody didn't know what mushroom chocolate bar I was talking about. I do have the box that I can show you. First, I got to find my weed. I think it's still in the cabinet over here. There it is. Look at that weed sitting right there looking at me in the cabinet. So this is once again Blue Dream. And this is just going to be regular old raw weed. I'm not putting any hash oil or anything on it. I'm going to smoke it like a barbarian. All right, let me get my light. There we go. Sit that down, sit that down. I was wondering where my damn weed went. It's right here. No wonder I couldn't find it. I left it in here from the live stream the other night. All right, let me move you over here. If you'll notice, I'm not wincing in pain tonight. Once I isolated the muscle that was hurting and I found out what was hurting, I realized it was when I swing my arm forward, right across here, the anterior deltoid. Like I'd get to about right here, and it would just feel like somebody was jamming a fucking ice pick into my shoulder. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't go beyond that point. And now I can go all the way up. So I can go all the way out sideways. I can rotate it around. It's still tender. There was definitely some, soft tissue injury in there. I strained it or something like that. But did several days of just going easy on it, taking anti-inflammatories and just sparing it. And I'm actually feeling better. So I was getting close to having to go to not the hospital, but the doctor. I even went to Walmart and bought a sling, and I walked around for 2 days with my arm just tied up in a sling, so I wasn't using it at all. Again, I already knew what the experience of going to the doctor was going to be. They were going to say, "Well, it hurts when you do that. Well, don't do that anymore. Take it easy, ice it down, twice a day, put cold on it, take ibuprofen, and here I'm going to give you a prescription for the exact same shit you've already got at home in your cabinet. It's just going to be a prescription version of it, because as if that's any different. And if it doesn't get better in a couple of weeks, come back in and see me, and we'll talk about blah, 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 or whatever." So I pretended I did a doctor's visit, and I did all those things, except I didn't actually ice it down or anything. I didn't use any kind of cold compress or anything. I just spared it. I didn't use it. I just kind of let it rest and recover for a few days. I kept the anti-inflammatories going, and here we are a few days later, and I'm feeling a hell of a lot better already. Remember, I used to be a therapist myself. So tender. All right. All right, let me do a hit off my bowl that I brought in, and then I'll show you the wrapper to that chocolate bar if you're interested in, if you haven't seen it yet. How do we go from 35 people down to 18 in a couple of minutes? That's the other thing that makes me think that it's going to be a while before people stop thinking about this as a fish keeping channel. One trend I notice with my live streams is no matter how many people we've got watching, when I get to the part where I sit down, I shed a ton of people. Like once we've made it all the way around the room and like looking at the fish part's done, like they're gone. And so we were at 32 or 34 people a minute ago, and we're down to 18. Now we come back up. So that's about usual. It'll take time. We'll eventually sort of shed the this is a fish keeping channel vibe, and I don't think people will come here expecting it to be a fish keeping channel. I should probably change my banner on the channel too, because the banner is just it's this fish tank behind me. Although I do spend a lot of time sitting in front of the fish tank, chatting down here in my den. Am I supposed to call this my den now rather than my fish room? I don't know. Maybe. No, tonight might have been Cecil because everybody was still here while Zini was chatting, and then Cecil showed up and everyone bailed. So maybe tonight it was Cecil. Oh, I know. I bet I know what it was. A few minutes ago, I talked about how common it was for same-sex animals to, like, how that's common in nature or whatever. And I probably probably shed people from that comment alone because people are dumb. All right, everybody. I gotta have something to work with here. So if you want to chat about something, you got to give me some topic to chat about. Oh, I'm just busting your chops, Cecil. That literally is one of Zini's theories, that whenever he shows up and starts chatting in the live stream, like everybody else either leaves or they stop chatting, it just Zini shows up and says, "Hey, everybody," just shuts the whole fucking thing down. Sometimes it seems like that. I think it's just coincidental. Like tonight, it was just coincidental that when you showed up, I honestly think it's more what I said about gay animals than anything else. That's probably what made everybody leave. Oh, you can ask the fish keeping question. I've said that all along. The whole live stream can be about fish keeping if people are asking me questions about fish keeping. I'm not going to sit here and just find fish keeping shit to talk about for 2 hours. I'm just done sitting here just rambling off fish keeping stuff. I'm not that interested in it anymore. I enjoy my fish tanks, but I'm not fascinated by fish keeping stuff anymore. So if you've got questions, you're more than welcome to pick my brain, and we can spend the whole evening talking about fish keeping stuff. When it gets to the slow parts where nobody's saying anything and it's time for me to sing and dance and entertain everybody, that's fine, but I ain't gonna be chatting about fish tanks. I'm gonna be telling you about the mushroom trip I had yesterday, or some dumb video I shot for my OnlyFans or something, because that's what's pertinent and relevant in my life a lot more so than my fish tanks that are just kind of down here in the basement, and I hang out down here sometimes. So that's what I mean by we're moving away from being a fish keeping channel, but fish keeping is obviously still a big part of my life, and so I'm more than happy to talk about all that stuff. Robert. Yeah, Zini does like it when I start talking about the saucy side of my life. I don't know why he gets a kick out of it, but he does. It just kills me how fast I go through weed when I don't soak it in oil first. It just burns up and it's gone. So this is that chocolate bar. Let me see where they're. See the logo right there? See how it's TRE house? I would pronounce that tray at a glance, but if you look closely, there's a little line over the E. I'm assuming they meant to make it a long E, so it's tree house. Is it tray house or is it tree house? I don't know. I'm calling them tree house. But everywhere I looked that they sold chocolate bars, this is the brand they sold. And I can personally vouch for them. I haven't eaten half of this yet. And I was maybe didn't get my money's worth out of it. I paid full price and shipping and everything else because I did a one-off order. If you get on subscription and have it delivered and all that, you can get it better. I don't like that light's making me look all blue. You turn that on, give me a little bit of life, a bit of color in my skin. There we go. That'll give me some color. Rather than pale green. Yeah, I've only eaten 6 out of the 15 squares, and so I paid $45 for this after shipping and paid full price. If you're just buying a single candy bar, it's $35. If you get it on subscription, it's $26, and you don't pay shipping. So I could be getting these at $26 a piece, but I don't know if I want any more of these. The tripleness lasted me so fucking long. I had just been saying literally that night in the live stream, I was saying how one of the things I've been enjoying about this little mushroom experience I've been going on, and if you're not familiar with it, a friend of mine gave me a bunch of mushrooms like a week ago, and I spent like a solid week eating mushrooms every day. And the thing I liked about it was I could eat them within an hour or so. They were on me, and then 5 hours later, I was coming in for a landing, and the trip was over, and I was back to normal, and everything was fine. Like with acid, it just lasts and lasts. And you just, at some point, you're wondering, like, God, is this trip going to ever fucking end? Am I ever coming back from this? Everybody goes through that point in an acid trip at some point. Like, God, when is this going to fucking end? I was starting to think like that on these mushrooms. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was still tripping, and I hadn't eaten any chocolate since 3 in the afternoon. So it was 10 hours, and I was still tripping along. You know, not hard or anything, but it was definitely noticeable. I was definitely still tripping. So I don't know if I'm going to do the chocolate a whole lot, because I don't like that kind of commitment for a trip. You know, maybe a nice day where I got nothing to do. I'm going to hang out around the house all day. I get up early in the morning. You know, something like that might be fine. But we'll see how the syrup does. We'll see how the puff, you know, the vaping stuff does. And then, of course, I also want to make the trip down to DC where I can just buy actual physical mushrooms, and we can experiment with some tea and tripping, you know, other ways using the tea rather than just eating those nasty ass mushrooms again. But I can definitely vouch if you see that brand of chocolate bar, the Treehouse chocolate bar, on some website, and you're considering whether or not to buy it. It's no joke. They're definitely not fucking ripping you off. The only issue I had was with the tracking. It was supposed to be 1 to 3 days, and when I went to bed on the second night, so like it should have been delivered at the latest, it should have been delivered by the following morning, and it was still saying that they had created a label and the postal service was waiting to pick it up. And I was like, there's no fucking way it's going to be here tomorrow if they haven't even picked it up yet. And so I woke up all prepared to Karen out on somebody and write a nasty email and demand to speak to somebody's manager and get my shipping money back or something. But I checked the shipping again, and it said it was out for delivery, and so it showed up on day 3. So I actually did get it on day 3. It was just there was no tracking. It went from we haven't picked it up yet to it's in your mailbox. Nothing in between. That's really not a lot of a complaint if that's all I can complain about, you know? All right, I think this time we're going to do another dab. I'm working out of my large container this time. That is Blue Dream, homegrown and homemade. I wonder if heating this up like this releases as much shit as the heating coils and the vapes and whatnot do, like on that article I talked about. It probably does. Sitting here basically just ingesting lead directly. There's another unnecessarily large one. All right, my torch is out of juice, so let me go refill it. Give you guys time to come up with some questions to ask me. I'm also going to take some of my CBD juice while I'm in here. I haven't taken it today. Oh, it dripped it on me. Now I've got oil spots on my shirt. That's all right. I got sweat spots on my shirt too, so I'm gonna be all spotty when I come back in there. All right, full charge. All right, Dennis, if you're still there, good night. Glad to see you again. Papa Smurf. All right, let me get caught up here. Oh, that sounds exciting, Chief. I had a figure 8 puffer for about 10 years. He was legendary. Let's talk about cat keeping. No, I have seen those videos, though. My cats wouldn't participate in that stupid shit. Papa Smurf. You saying I look like Papa Smurf because of my blue shirt? I need a white hat. Darren's down. Who's Darren? Yeah, Cornish. I ate 3 pieces. I waited about an hour and a half, and then I ate 3 more pieces. And then within 10 minutes of eating those 3 pieces, it's the common amateur mistake. I didn't wait long enough. Within a few minutes of eating the second round, I felt the elevator go up again, and like the trip started rolling on to me more. And I was like, this can't be the second pieces I ate. This has got to still be the first ones, and I'm still going up. And I told my wife, I was like, this ought to be interesting to see where I eventually go, because it was a real slow fucking roll on. Like literally like 2 hours it took to fully roll on. And so I did the 3, I waited an hour and a half, and then I did 3 more. And 6 of them is the upper limit of day at the beach. And I would say that's probably about right. Obviously me being in front of a camera and doing live public stuff is a little different than just chilling at the beach. I think I'd be fine if I don't think I had any really sketchy moments if I was just chilling at the beach all day, rather than being live on camera. But you go much more than that, and it's going to start being a pretty fucking intense trip. And I don't know if you'd want to really be outside in public. Some people do that shit out in public all the time. They trip and go places and do stuff. And the South Park guys, Matt and Trey, years ago, do you remember when they went to some red carpet event? They went to like the Emmys or something. I think it was after they put their movie out, and they both wore the same dress that Jennifer Lopez had worn the year before. And the whole gag was that they never mentioned the dresses they were wearing. Every time somebody would say, like, are you wearing what Jennifer Lopez wore last year? They just would just say, oh, I'm so glad to be here. This is such a great night. They just never fucking addressed the dresses. They just wore them as a gag and never said a fucking word about them, wouldn't answer questions, just didn't acknowledge them. So that was hilarious in itself. But I found out years later, after listening to an interview with them, they were both tripping their asses off on LSD. They had taken acid and done that. Like, who the fuck would take acid and then go on the red carpet and go like that? Is not the kind of acid trip I want to have. So yeah, I think 6 of them, if you're going to go and hang out at the beach or whatever, depending on your tolerance and your level of what you think is cool. But I would recommend maybe starting slow. Maybe start with the bottom end, start at 4, and give it an hour and a half or something like that, and then see if maybe you want to have another 1 or 2 and just sort of bump it up a little bit. But it's long lasting. It rolled on really, really slow, and then it rolled off on the backside really, really long coming in for a landing. Now I went down in stages because I went up in stages. But still, it is a long, long glide down. It's nice and smooth. It's not a rough ride down, but man, it just took forever. Let's see. Janice is a former ER nurse. Staying calm in emergencies is what she does. She's a pro. Oh, well, never mind. That's why she's so calm, because he didn't just break it. I should have read on a little further. Yeah, tell him, well, you're not even here anymore anyway, Janice, but if you are, tell him I wish him well. See, I've always heard mescaline was like a really intense trip. I never wanted to do mescaline because I was always afraid it would be like too overwhelming for me. I still think LSD is the fucking bomb. The acid is the fucking craziest drug ever. Like, that shit is so potent, and that you trip so hard off of acid. My wife doesn't do my laundry. I do my own laundry. She does her own laundry. I know exactly what you're talking about, Robert. What I refer to that as... Hey, Rumsey, how are you? Half ounce of mushrooms last weekend, waiting for a good time to eat them. Nice. I made tea for the first time out of mushrooms the other day, and it was a lot better than eating them. And so if you're interested, I'll tell you how I made them into tea. You'll get none of the stomach bullshit that you get. You won't feel like the cramps and the upset stomach if you eat a lot of mushrooms. If you eat a gram or two, it's, you might get a little bit of stomach stuff going on. But if you're eating an eighth or a quarter, it's rough on the fucking digestion. I really think when I had my bad trip, and I kept thinking there was demons in my stomach and demons in my guts and everything. In one sense, I knew it was like I had gas and my stomach was all tore up and all that. But in my trip state, it was demons. And I think that all came from the fact that I ate a lot. I ate like a quarter ounce of mushrooms. I chewed them up real rough and ready, just enough to get them down and swallow them. And that's just terrible going through your guts. It doesn't digest very well, and it just chews your guts up as it's passing through you. And so if I had tea that day, if I'd have taken that same intense dosage and not had all that stomach shit going on, I probably wouldn't have had a bad trip, or at least not the same bad trip, because I wouldn't have had all that fucking stomach stuff going on. But the tea was great. If I ever get physical mushrooms again, I'm definitely going to the route of making them into tea again. Well, I was reluctant myself. Again, with the acid, I kind of agree with you. I don't think I'd necessarily have a good trip on acid. But some of the most intense trips I've had and the worst trip I've ever had have been on mushrooms. But I'm right there with you on the same page. It's not necessarily a life responsibility thing, but it's being aware of what's going on in the world around me and knowing the things I know now. And just it would be very different tripping. Not necessarily like I feel like I'm shirking my responsibility. I do that all the fucking time. I gleefully shirk my responsibility. But if you're doing that and you're on acid and you're thinking about all the terrible shit that's happening in the world, and and then I can just see me going into some dark places or some really ugly places. I'm a little. I don't think I want to do acid again. Like I said before, I'm not ruling it out 100%, but I'm pretty much done with acid. Acid's really a fucking intense drug. But I've been having some really good positive experiences with these mushrooms. Again, it's alleviated my depression somewhat. I'm still a little depressed. I don't have motivational issues. I haven't been taking my daily naps. I feel my mind feels calmer. I don't feel like my thoughts are racing around so much anymore. I've had a really positive experience from these mushrooms. I've enjoyed being on them. Again, last Friday night, I had a couple little moments where I was a little sketched out, but it was like a comedian standing on stage bombing, whether you're on acid or not, or tripping or not. Like, it's awkward to be bombing. And Friday night, I was bombing. I was like, just nobody was saying anything. I was practically begging people to just fucking fucking say something. Give me something to fucking talk about here. And just like, no, it was just dead. It was the whole live stream was just dead. And of course, I got up in my head about it a little bit. I kept saying, well, fuck, who cares, and just did my own thing. And so Friday night had a little couple of weird moments, but other than that, I haven't had any unpleasant moments at all over the last week. I've just been smiling and laughing and enjoying things and looking at the garden, and I'm getting stuff done around the house. I've been pulling weeds and stuff out in the garden. That's been fun, going through the garden and like finding the stuff that you want to pull out and the stuff that you want to leave in. I was having a good time with that before. I never thought I would enjoy pulling weeds in the garden, but I had a good time with that the other day. It's been an interesting week. It really has. So I'm looking forward to future experimentations with the mushrooms. But I kind of agree with the acid. I think I'm just afraid of where my head might go if I did the LSD again, because the LSD is some wild shit. It really is. I never recommend acid to anybody, and I won't recommend mushrooms to anybody either, unless you wanted to do like a really micro dose. I'd say go ahead and do that. But acid's one of those drugs, and I've said this plenty of times before. I've said this for years. I won't try to discourage anybody from doing it, but I also don't recommend it to anybody. I can just share my experiences, and I can say, offer little bits of advice or caution and say, that's up to you, take that information and do what you want with it. It's not for everybody. It's something you need to take seriously. It's a pretty intense drug. I've seen people have some really bad experiences on it. You can get involved in really dangerous behavior because you just don't think about what you're doing and you just walk out into the street. It should be taken seriously. It's not like smoking some weed. I recommend everybody smoke weed. Go try it if you haven't before. Worst that's going to happen is you're going to feel a little paranoid. You might get a little bit of a headache or something, and 2 hours later you'll be back to normal. And then you don't have to smoke it anymore or whatever. It's worth a try. I always recommend, that kind of stuff. Acid, I'm not recommending that shit to anybody and then having them end up in a fucking psych ward for 2 weeks while they sort out fucking mommy issues they didn't know they had until they took acid. It's an intense drug. It really is. And so you have to go into it respectfully and cautiously. It's not, at least I think so. I mean, I've seen people treat it like it's a party drug. Woo, they throw some acid in their mouth and go out for the night. And, maybe if you're a seasoned user, but for your first time doing acid, don't do that. Trust me, don't do that. You will not have a good time. I'll have to try mescaline then. I've never, I only have one story about mescaline, and I'll share it when I get caught up on the comments. Mushrooms and cocaine. Wow, that sounds like a good band name. Yeah, I wanted to go outside in the dark. I never made it there, though. It can sometimes heavyweight, but it can also be weird shit. A friend of mine was having a really bad trip one time, and he kept asking his wife if the men were still there, and if, and she kept saying no, they were gone and it's safe now. And I never did find out if he was reliving some traumatic experience or if it was just total hallucination. But he was kind of fucked up after that trip. I think that kind of made him remember some shit that he had been drinking a lot of alcohol over the years to not be thinking about anymore. And that's when I made my rule, because I kind of talked him into doing the acid. He didn't really want to do it. I was like, come on, man, it'll be fun. And he had a really bad fucking time on it. And, he like a really bad time. And again, it was almost like he was reliving some kind of weird abusive experience from his childhood or something. And like he was crying and he was asking if the men were still there. And like it didn't give me a bad trip being there and seeing it happen, but it definitely was not a pleasant experience of watching somebody go through this.
So ever since then, I've all right. I'm not fucking pushing this shit on anybody. You want to do it, you go ahead and do it. But you can have a bad fucking time on acid. You really can. Yeah, I used to take it in school all the time. Oh, that's cool, Billy. I've just been getting mine through the mail. LDS. Yes, ultramagnetic, absolutely 100%. With those really low, just came with it, little dim ass LEDs that come in the hood. I have I hardly ever scrape the glass in that tank. I don't have algae growing all over everything. I do have a pleco in there, a little clown pleco in there. But compared to the way my other tanks, the way you see algae growing in these and the way we have to wipe the glass down and everything, it's a completely different ball game. So absolutely. So in response to someone saying how everything looks like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I've never seen everything look like it's that sort of everything's a model, like weird. But the way I like in what the world looks like when I'm tripping, or even when I smoke a lot of weed and I get really, really high, it starts to look like this. If you're familiar with those old Viewmasters, you put them up to your eyes and you hit the button and the slides would go around. So it was 3D because you got, two pictures, one in each eye. So you got the 3D. But the way the photo you were looking at was done like a lithographic photo. It was layers over top of each other. So you know how you see like motion parallax as you're moving, the trees close to you are going by real fast, and the ones further away are moving slower. The ones real far away are barely moving at all. Up close to the woods, those layers between this tree and that tree and that tree and that tree and that tree, it starts to look like these like lithography. It looks like layers or like an animation cell where they'll flip, they'll put the different, layers over the cells and give it that three-dimensional depth appearance. Everything looks like that when I'm tripping. Everything looks like I'm looking through a fucking Viewmaster, and everything's like in like super ultra bright, almost slightly oversaturated colors. And even if I'm not tripping hard enough for the colors to change and everything, just everything looks really vibrant. And the like the resolution, the lines, like everything, the contrast is really sharp, and everything looks like it's in these layers, and you're looking through like a lithography or a lithograph or whatever. Looking through a viewfinder or looking through a Viewmaster is the best way I can describe it. If you ever look through a Viewmaster, just imagine the whole world looking like what it looks like when you're looking through a Viewmaster, and that's kind of what it looks like when you're tripping. And then the other thing I was going to say is it's not legal here in Maryland, but DC, which is a few miles away from me, has some weird laws, and they do a loophole. They're not allowed to sell weed there either, but you were able to get weed in DC dispensaries long before you could get it here in Maryland. And the way they do it is they just do the loophole of you're not buying the weed or you're not buying the mushrooms, you're buying some other little thing. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's something like if you go in there and you buy this $25 package of incense, we'll give you a free gift. And so which one of these bags of mushrooms do you want as your free gift? And so you select the mushrooms you like, and that's your free gift. But you purchased the incense sticks for $25. The mushrooms are just a gift, and that's perfectly legal. You can give somebody mushrooms, you're just not allowed to sell them mushrooms. And the same with weed. When you go to buy weed in DC, you're not actually buying the weed, you're buying some other thing, and then the weed is a free gift to thank you for your purchase. And you don't have to be a DC resident. You just have to have a ID showing you're 21 or older. Just like going in a liquor store, you can be traveling. So if you live in Northern Virginia, or even if you live in North Carolina and you don't have a place to get it and you're willing to make a little bit of a road trip, just drive up into DC, and as long as you're 21 and have a valid ID, you can get weed or mushrooms. And so I'm still thinking about making a trip down there. I know I've said this earlier, but I'm still thinking about making a trip down to that place. It's like a block from the White House. and it's just been so many years since I've been down in DC, like DC proper. I've been down on the Beltway around DC, Silver Spring, you know, those areas. But I haven't actually been in DC in, God, almost 20 years probably. I think the last time I was in DC, I was working. I was driving a truck for that guy named Rob. Doesn't matter. And I had a delivery at the Home Depot down there occasionally. And there's a Home Depot like in DC proper, like not on the outskirts, but like in DC. And I used to have to go down there and make that delivery. That's probably the last time I was down there. And that's not exactly like enjoying my drive through DC or anything. Going down there at 1 o'clock in the morning in a tractor trailer. I don't think my drip marks are even showing up on camera. All right, where are we? Oh, we're still in the same spot we were. Oh, I'm also on top messages. How did I get on top messages? Yep, we're still right where we were. All right, I guess we'll start winding down unless you all keep me going with something, because we are almost at 10 o'clock, and I suppose my 2-hour live stream is where it's supposed to kind of wrap up. After that's overtime. I did 6 fucking hours the other night. I was in the process of wrapping it up, and thank God, because sometimes I'm right about to wrap it up, and then I keep going. But I was just in the process of wrapping it up when the battery died on my camera, and we called it good. And I think it was like 5 hours and 58 minutes or something. It was just shy of 6 hours. Oh, I haven't been to House of Tropicals in a couple of years. I haven't been to any fish store in a couple of years. I haven't even been over to the excuse me. I haven't even been over to the PetSmart or Petco over in Westminster, 20 minutes away. I am thinking about new fish, but as I was kind of ranting earlier about just not like really being into fish as much as I used to be, it just doesn't feel pressing. There's other things that I'm thinking about and whatnot, and I don't really even think about it until I come down here. Occasionally when I'm in Westminster, where the 2 fish stores are, maybe I'll stop in there, and then I'm always like, I don't know, and I just kind of never do. But I want to get some guppies for my 20 here with the betta fish in it. I want to get some kind of tetra or some small schooling fish. My 29 has 1 black skirt tetra and 1 red-blue Colombian left in it. And I would like to I always like to have like a feature fish, my angel fish. I got my bottom dwelling fish, my loaches. I got my little loach and everything down on the bottom. But I need some like filler fish. I need the sequins, the little sparkly things that move around the tank and, make it look interesting. And so I'm reluctant to just go to PetSmart or Petco again, because I just have a feeling it's going to be the same fucking fish over and over again. And as much as I do like black skirt tetras, I've got plenty in my 55 right there, so I don't need to get any more black skirt tetras. I don't know. So like that's kind of all I got going on with fish that I'd like to get. I want to fill up my 29 a little bit, and we need to put some fish in this little 20 right here. At some point, we will probably add some fish to this, but we got to let some people die off first. And I don't know how. Can you see the hang on. Can you see the wire right behind where I guess you can't see, but right behind where that discus is swimming, there's a wire. And now you can see it. See that yellowy orange shrimp on it? I put a bunch of shrimp in this tank, and a lot of them seem to still be alive. And I also dumped a bunch of shrimp. I went into my little shrimp tank down here today, and my office tank is another tank that needs some kind of feature fish. I don't know if I'm going to get another betta fish. The 5 black skirt tetras are still in there. I said the other day that I thought it was down to 3, but I was watching the other day and I saw all 5 of them schooling together. So the skirt tetras are still in there. The clown pleco is still in there. But the feature fish is not. I don't have a little dwarf gourami, or I don't have the betta fish in there or something. So I need to get something like that in there. And it's overgrown with the Java moss. and then the Java moss has green cyanobacteria growing all over it. And so I've seen what those little amano shrimp can do to cyanobacteria. And so I put about a dozen of them in there, and I'm hoping they'll breed without the black skirt tetras feeding on them too much, and I'll be able to contain or continue maintain having shrimp in there. And I'm really interested to see how fast they devour that cyanobacteria, because when I put them in that tank, my little shrimp tank down there, I put a piece of wood that was just slimy green in there, and in 36 hours, it was gorgeous wood grain. Like, it was beautiful. It was like they'd done a professional restoration process on this piece of wood. It was amazing looking in a day and a half. And so having a handful of shrimp in my tank upstairs, it's going to be interesting to see if and how quickly they can get on top of all that cyanobacteria. So I'm kind of waiting for that to happen first. I want to see if I can get on top of the cyanobacteria. I'll get in there, I'll vac it a little bit, get all the mulm, and I'll get the tank kind of, in a little better shape. And then I'll think about putting some other sort of fish in there. I really am tempted to get a dwarf gourami again, because I really like the dwarf gouramis, but they just don't last long. They always just die within 9 months. So I'm thinking if I go into it with the knowledge of this is a 9-month fish, it's going to cost me $5, but I'll get to enjoy it for 9 months before it dies. Shit, I paid $25. I ate $25 worth of mushrooms, and I enjoyed that for 6 hours. $8 for 9 months. That's not a bad deal. So if I go into the idea of thinking like, all right, this, I'm not going to get frustrated with myself if this fish dies in 6 months or 8 months, because that's just what they fucking do. I can maybe try another dwarf gourami. I really do like the dwarf gouramis. I've just never had any luck with them. And over the years, I've had enough other people say like, yeah, dude, it ain't you, it's them. They don't live. They just don't live long. So I don't know. But that's about all I've got on my plans. And then you never know, when I'm in a fish store, I see something that catches my eye. I'm certainly not above, especially with my ADHD, I'm certainly not above impulse purchases. Impulse purchases are very common with ADHD. Just impulse behavior is very common with ADHD. All right, I tried to go a little easier on that one. That was a little more manageable. I don't think I'm going to cough my full head off that time. Oh, I breed amano shrimp. I don't really do anything. They do all the work themselves. Oh, well, I'm glad I have a cheering effect on you, Bob. But my depression don't work that way. My depression is in my brain, and it's chemical, and I could win the fucking lottery. And if I was depressed, I would still be depressed. Like, there's nothing fucking changes that other than medication. So, but I do appreciate the thoughts and the sentiment. I don't medicate when I quarantine unless I feel a need to. Yeah, those eggs were nearite snail eggs. Yeah, get some amano shrimp in there. They will just absolutely destroy that stuff. I thought they were amano shrimp. Arknight gave them to me. Are they amano shrimp? Am I getting that wrong? Maybe. Oh, they're neocardenias. That's what I am getting that wrong. They're neocardenias. I'm not a shrimp guy. Arknight gave me a bunch of them, and I just know they're pretty little shrimp, and I'm getting a lot of different colors out of them as they breed. But they are not. They're neocardenias. And they absolutely devour the cyanobacteria, and they breed like mad. He gave me a bag full of maybe a dozen or so. I threw them in a 5-gallon tank and put lots of food in there for them. And I've got that tank full of them. I've got a tank down here full of them. And I regularly scoop them out and throw them in other tanks and use them for fish food, or just try to establish them in other tanks. I got a tank in my shower that I replaced. The one that was in there leaked and broke, so I've thrown that away. I've set up a new tank in there, and I've already put a dozen or so of the shrimp in there. So I fully expect within a week or so, I'm going to have a zillion of them in the, in that tank. So they breed like mad, but they are not a mono shrimp. I was using the wrong term. My bad. Sorry, everybody. And that's why you never listen to, never put too much weight in what somebody says in a video. You guys were here live to check me, but if this had been a standalone video and I was just talking about my shrimp and I had said a mono shrimp, I would have probably just kept saying a mono shrimp, and that would have been bad information I was putting out of there. But you guys were here to catch me in real time, and that's good. I'm glad you did, because I hate putting bad information out there. Hey, Sweet Acres. Yeah, I don't know anything about the Amano shrimp. The one I have are the Neocardinia. So if we look down here, this is my one shrimp tank. This wasn't even meant to be my shrimp tank. And I will get to the question about the quarantining in a minute. Look how red some of them are. That one on top is fat as shit. That one on top is probably full of eggs or with berry. I'm going to say she probably is, because I can see all her little hind wiggly things wiggling, and she's probably aerating and ventilating her eggs. So there's a bazillion of them in there. There's probably more shrimp than snails in there. I got a bunch of shrimp in here. You can see them crawling all over the place. So I reset this area up in here. Say hello to Uma, everybody. There you go, Zini. There they are. And so I've got this tank set up in here now. And all that's in there so far is shrimp. But both the little pieces of wood you can see in there I pulled as much as I could off of it, but they had some Java moss. I can't want to say hair algae. They had Java moss growing on them. So no matter how much Java moss I pulled off of there, I guarantee there is still Java moss on there. And then this is my official shrimp tank. I don't know why the water is always cloudy, but it surely is. And this tank is just loaded with shrimp. There's so many shrimp in here. They're crawling all over everything. So I need to get in here and thin the population out a little bit. If you just look in the water, they just swim around like sea monkeys. I was just talking about sidecar monkeys the other day. Anybody ever watch old sidecar racing? They probably still do sidecar racing. I haven't followed motorsports and racing and that kind of stuff in a long time. Let's see if I can affect that light a little better. There we go. I know the light's a lot dimmer, but that's fine. You don't need a spotlight in my face. I'm tired of bright light shining in my eyes. If you ever watch sidecar racing, motorcycle sidecar racing, you got the driver, and then you got the person in the sidecar that climbs all over the place. They're the counterbalance. They'll hang off one side, and then the corners coming the other way. They'll lean over and they'll lay, hanging way off on the other side. Their head's a fucking half an inch off the ground. That position is typically referred to as the monkey. So whenever you hear someone talking about a sidecar monkey or a monkey in racing or whatever, it's not a derogatory term. It's not meant to be insulting in any way or whatever. That's what the person is called. Male, female, doesn't matter. That position is the monkey. You got the driver and you got the monkey. So I was trying to talk to somebody about that the other day, and I don't know if I was making it clear enough about the definition or description. So I guess it doesn't really matter, but I don't know why I think about that all the time, but I do. It's a job I would never want to do. That person that does that is nuts. If you've ever seen them do it and you've ever watched sidecar racing, that person is absolutely nuts. Do you think the people hanging off the back of the trash truck while it's driving down the road are crazy? Look at a sidecar monkey. They're insane. Yeah, I don't think I'd be depressed because I won the lottery. Amano's a variety of Neocardinia. All right, well, that's all I got for you then. I don't know what else to tell you. If Ark is still here, he can chime in and let us know what shrimp they are, but I swear he said they were Neocardinia at this point, so I don't know if I'm getting that one wrong too. Then I don't know what they are. They're just shrimp. Well, do Neocardinia breed in freshwater? Yes, Neocardinia shrimp, like red cherry shrimp, breed readily in fresh water, and the picture of it is showing pretty much exactly what's in my tank. So I'm going to go with them being Neocardinia. Nearite snails will eat the red-green or the red-blue cyanobacteria too, but I like the ramshorn snails. I have a lot of ramshorn snails. Yeah, that's what I thought these were. And I just looked it up and it said they breed readily in fresh water, so that's got to be what I got. And they do breed readily. I may have trumpet snails, Matt. Steve gave me a bunch one time, and I kind of threw them in the tank, and I've never really thought much about them since. But every now and again, I will see a snail shell where it almost looks like it's a dead shell, like it's the snail died, but I hadn't seen it before. And then later when I come back, it's not there again. So I don't know if the fish are moving them around or if there really are still some trumpet snails in there. So maybe, I guess, would be the correct answer. We can go have a look, or I'll go have a look real quick. I'm not going to pick you guys up again for the moment. Oh, and I had somebody join my Patreon too, so I don't think you're watching now, but if you watch the rewatch and you're hearing me, I did send an email. The fact that they paid $2.99 for the Patreon, because Patreon lets you donate whatever you want per month. And I do have a Patreon. I don't do anything over there anymore. I haven't done anything on it for years. But I get $5.66 every month. So apparently a decade ago, a few people signed up and have just forgotten about it. So I get a little money from Patreon every month, and $5 is $5. So I've never shut it down. But I do have a Patreon. If you would like to help support the channel, you can always go and sign up at the Patreon. Again, I don't do anything over there or post anything over there, but on more than one occasion, I've talked about, joining the channel so you can get access to the Discord. And then I'll have someone say, hey, I joined and I still can't find the Discord or whatever. And I'll look at my email and I'll see that somebody joined my Patreon for $2.99. And if you're listening, you have to go underneath, you have to join the YouTube channel. I should make this more clear when this is not the first time this has happened. But if you go to any one of my videos, underneath of it, you'll see a join button. That's what you want to click, and you join the YouTube channel membership, which costs $2.99. That's the minimum I could make it. And that gets you access to the Discord and the YouTube and the Wednesday night live stream and all that stuff that I always talk about. The Patreon is just nothing. I used to post some videos over there. I never really could figure out what to do with it. I never really got much feedback from the people. Every time I'd say, what do you guys want me to do over here? What kind of videos would you like me to post? Everybody was just like, oh, we're just here to support you. We don't care. And it just kind of faded out. And I haven't posted a video to Patreon in 5 years probably, but I do have a Patreon. And if anybody is interested in that, you can join, and if you contact me, I can post. I don't have any problem posting video for Patreon. I used to post video. I guess this membership area is kind of what evolved out of the Patreon. The idea of Patreon, there were no memberships at YouTube at the time. So the idea behind my Patreon back then was, hey, if you want to get to know me a little more personally and hang out with me on a little more casual basis rather than these public live streams, you can join Patreon, and I'll post other types of videos over there. But if you're familiar with like my driving around videos where I'm driving at work and I'm talking about this landmark or that, or, you know, I'll shoot a video about spraying deer repellent because that's what I do for a living. I'd shoot outdoorsy type videos when I was out on my kayak or something, just little snippets of my life. But fundamentally, it wasn't a lot different. I still felt like I was talking to a public audience. I still censored what I said. I still didn't use any foul language. There was never any, you know, marijuana was never mentioned or anything. So it was just basically like videos of me doing stuff that you wouldn't, you know, like regular everyday kind of stuff, like going to work or out on the kayak or look at the garden in my yard and that sort of thing. And I don't think people were willing to pay money for that kind of stuff. But if people are willing to pay money for other kinds of stuff and fun stuff, and, you know, I can do a lot of stuff on Patreon. So I could try to revive that. I got to do something to earn money. The OnlyFans thing is puttering along and fucking barely making me anything. I think this month I'm actually going to make more here on YouTube than over there. For a while it was looking good, but now it's, you know, kind of petering out again. I'm kind of almost losing interest in it, but you know, a few $100s a month is still a few $100s a month. It's hard to just say, I'm just going to dismiss that source of income. So I don't know. I'll figure something out. Or not. As long as there's jam tomorrow, that's all I'm worried about. All right, let's keep working away on this bowl. All right, I know there was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, quarantining. I was asked about quarantining. Do I always quarantine fish that I get from PetSmart or Petco? No, I don't always quarantine fish I get from anywhere, but I do quarantine frequently. I quarantine if I can. If I get a big fish that won't fit in my 10-gallon quarantine tank, I can't. You know, if there's already fish in my quarantine tank, I can't. I mean, I could, but I'd sort of have to start the whole process over from the time I add the new fish, you know? So if I've already got fish that are almost done, they've been in there for 2 months or something, and I'm confident they're ready to go into a tank, but I brought home some new fish, I'm not going to mix them up. If it was a fish that I really felt that I needed to quarantine, I might take them out, open, you know, make space available, and then put the new fish in. But a lot of times I will weigh out what the fish look like, the condition they're in, what tank they're going in, how big is the tank they're going in, how expensive are the other fish that are going in there. I do know there are horror stories out there, and, you know, people say once it happens to you, you'll quarantine everything all the time from now on. Possibly that's true. It has not yet happened to me, so I'm not there yet. But I've heard people tell horror stories about how they brought something home from the store and it had, you know, flying monkey disease or whatever. And then the next thing you know, their whole tank was wiped out and there was nothing they could do about it. It happened so fast, they were all dead. And if we'd have just quarantined them, then those fish all would have died in quarantine and we would have known, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. In my experience, I one time had a disastrous experience like that. It wasn't flying monkey disease, but it was columnaris. And I brought it home from wild caught fish in my minnow trap. And I brought them home into my big 125 that was mostly native fish at the time. And I just threw the native fish in with all the other native fish. And it wiped the fucking tank out in about 3 days. I had like 2 or 3 fish survive the ordeal. It was rough. The fish were dropping like flies. I was coming down in the morning to 6 or 8 dead fish every day for a couple of days. That's the only time I've ever really had an experience like that. So will I bring wild caught fish home and throw them right into a tank full of fish that I don't want to die? No, I'll never do that again, I don't think. Store-bought fish, I've never had anything come home from PetSmart, Petco, House of Tropicals. There's a place out in Frederick. I've never brought anything home from a fish store more serious than ick. I know other people have. I've never brought home anything more serious than ick. In all the years I've been keeping fish and all the fucking thousands of fish I've probably bought over the years, I've never brought home anything from a fish store more serious than ick. And if it's ick, yes, it would be a lot easier and cheaper if I treated the ick in a 10-gallon tank. But if I put it, you know, I go out and I buy some skirt tetras and I put them in my 29, and a couple days later I notice like, oh shit, there's some spots on some of the fish. Well, now I got to treat the whole tank, but it's only a 29-gallon tank, so it's going to be a little more costly. You know, I do have to use more medication to treat a 29-gallon tank than a 10. But if they came home looking good, you know, that doesn't mean they don't have ick. They might just not be expressing the outwardly signs of it yet. But again, the chances of them being at that stage, which is such a narrow window of them having ick, but not showing outward signs of it yet. Like, again, if it's just, it's a, you know, it's a gambling thing. It's a, what's the word I'm looking for? Odds, statistical. I'm still not finding the right word I'm looking for. Probably early onset dementia. And I'm not joking about that. I probably am starting to have like brain issues. Anyway, it's a calculated risk. That's what I was looking for. It's always a calculated risk. I do my best to calculate how much of a pain in the ass is this going to be to quarantine? Should I quarantine? How big is the fish? What tank are they going in? As with most things in life, I treat every situation as its own situation, and I think about all the factors involved in that situation. Usually, I will make the decision to quarantine, but not always. And those are some of the reasons why I might not. There might be other reasons why I don't. I may simply just say, fuck it, and throw them in there and just throw the dice thinking I got a pretty good chance. I've done that plenty of times. I probably wouldn't do that to my tank full of discus. You know, I probably wouldn't do that to my, you know, tank that's got flow and there's other fish in there. My 55, it's got a bunch of tetras in it. You know, tetras to me are like mobile sequins. They're sparkly and they move around. I can't tell one of them from the other. They're just random sparkly fish swimming around in the tank. My striped Raphael is a different story. You know, my tilapia is a different story. That's a specific fish. You know, I don't have one single favorite skirt tetra that I've singled out whose personality is really interesting. You know, I just don't see those fish that way. Neons, again, moving mobile sequins. If I have a tank full of tetras and something happens and I wipe them all out, you know, that's a bummer, but you know, it's not going to be some sort of emotional heartbreak because I lost all my skirt tetras. You know, it's a fucking skirt tetra. I'll go buy some more. I know that sounds a little callous coming out like that. But that's, you know, that's just reality. That's how I look at it. Again, my discus, I may not be able to tell them apart personality wise because they're all just sort of swimming pretty fish. I think you can see where the difference between the skirt tetra and the discus is. We don't really need to have that conversation. So there are some fish that I'm emotionally attached to that I wouldn't want to risk their health. And then there's some that are just simply valuable and I wouldn't want to risk their health. So, you know, a lot of different factors go into it. Luis, how are you? All right, let me get caught up on some comments here. All right, Zini's probably already gone. Yeah, that's what I figure, Matt. They're just down in there, dug in, and I see them occasionally, and then I don't see them again. Yeah, the sidecar racing I'm talking about, it's not quite those same kind of World War II sidecars, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I was actually just talking to somebody about Hogan's Heroes the other day. What should you buy for a 75-gallon tank? And I don't know if that's Louis or Luis. Pick the correct one. I don't want to call you by the wrong name. A 75-gallon tank. You can do a lot of stuff in a 75-gallon tank. If you wanted to make that into an African cichlid tank, that's not my thing. But if you were into that, you could make a 75 into a really nice African cichlid tank. You could do a planted freshwater tank and have it full of, you know, you almost have to start with what theme are you going to go with? What concept do you want to go with? Do you want to go with a heavily planted tank or a sparsely planted tank? If so, you're going to pick different fish. Do you want fresh water? Do you want hard water? If so, you're going to pick different fish. Do you want a tank that's got a lot of little fish, or do you want a tank that's got a few very large fish? Obviously, you're going to be picking different fish in that scenario. So if you want to fill me in a little bit, give me some framework to go by, just saying, what can I put in the 75? I don't honestly, I don't want to sound rude, but I don't want to sit here and list fish for the next half an hour that could potentially go in a 75-gallon tank. Are you doing hard water, soft water, planted, not planted? Do you like a lot of little fish? Do you like a lot of big fish? You get a conversation going out there. I'm sure other people will give you feedback as well. But just saying a 75-gallon tank, that's a pretty broad, you can put a lot of stuff in a 75-gallon tank. If you said a 5-gallon tank, now you got a pretty limited selection, and I can rattle off half a dozen fish that might work in a 5-gallon tank. A 75-gallon tank, there's more fish you could put in there in the hobby than fish you can't put in there in the hobby. So you got a lot. You're spoiled for choice. You got a lot of options. Let's see. Yes, I definitely would not put any fish in Squeaker that were not quarantined first. Well, you can get guppies. Just make sure if you do get guppies, you just get all males. Don't get any females. I used to do that just because that's the common wisdom in the hobby of, don't buy a female guppy because you'll just have so many guppies you won't know what to do with them. And at some point I realized, like, wait a minute, I like guppies. If I can just buy a female or two, I can just get free guppies, as many guppies as I want. And I did. You will eventually run out of guppies. They will start, you can only spread them around. And some, the inbreeding is going to take its toll over time. You'll start to see them turning up with crooked backs. You'll start to see them living less, lifetime. At that point, you might want to put them in other tanks and use them for feeder fish and maybe get some fresh blood, some fresh stock into your, mixing them with your guppies or something. But the guppies won't last forever. I'm down to, I have a couple in this tank here, the little 20-gallon, and I was looking at my wife's tank upstairs, and that still has 3 or 4 guppies swimming around in it. That's all I've got left. I'm not sure if I have any in my pond. I don't think I do, but I used to have probably 100 guppies, and I'm not even counting like the baby guppies that would pop out all over the place all the time. It did get problematic at some points where I would have to start segregating them or scooping the babies out and using them as feeder fish. When they would get old enough that I could tell which ones were male, which ones were female, I would separate out the females, and I would create sorority tanks where just only females would be in the tanks. So it can get problematic, but at the same time, you get a lot of free fish when you buy a couple of female guppies along with your few males. I'd always try to get more females than males if you want to do that. Have maybe 2 males and 3 females or something. Otherwise, the males will just harass the females literally to death. They will just stress them out to death. But yeah, it's a good way to get free fish. You can do that really with any of the live bears. Just get some males and females. They're not hard to breed. The problem is typically overbreeding and what to do with all the damn babies. All right, everybody. It is almost 10:30, so I am going to get up into first position. And if we get any more conversation going on about the 75, we'll hang out for that for a little bit. And then we'll start winding down for the night. That's what it looks like all the way at like 6,500K. I look like I died yesterday. They did their best with the makeup. And then that's what it looks like all the way down full of 2,700K. I look like I spent the day at the beach. So that's probably a little closer to reality right there. And now I'm not being blinded. All right, is that it, everybody? We're wrapping it up. No more comments? So hang out for a few here. I know there's a little bit of a lag time, but I would feel like I would have started getting some responses by now. All right, now it's not showing me any comments. It's got a blank screen. Still getting a blank screen. Don't know what's going on there. There we go. Oh, thank you, Eugene. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Robert. You do that with any of the live bears, mollies, platies, variatus, guppies, endlers. They're not all related, but they're all considered live bears. You mix them up, you get some males and females together. Now, when most people buy the platies and mollies and the variatus, usually they won't separate them. You can't say, give me that one, and that one. You know, they'll just say, well, if you want 4, they shoot 4 out. But you can tell the males from the females. If you're really specific and you want to get 5 males in your tank so that you're not breeding them, there is a way to tell the difference between the males and the females on live bears, and it's pretty easy. You can partially go by their dorsal fin. The males are always going to have, it's going to come up to a point, whereas the females tend to be much more rounded and stubbier. But the real telltale, they're called gonopodium. And if you look at the female around her vent, it's just two. As a female, I think the female just has 2 fins, but the male has 2. It's like 2 little spiky things that stick backwards off of them. Let me look that up. I'll see if I can find a picture of it now that I'm talking about it. Let's see. I just put in live bear, and I don't think. Okay, gonopodium. This is the most defining feature of the male live bear: a rod-like or a stick-shaped anal fin that serves as their reproductive organ, unlike a triangular or fan-shaped anal fin on the female. So I was correct. The females have an anal fin that looks like a fin. It's a round fin shape. And the male live bears, and this is true on all the live bears, whether it's a guppy or a platy or a molly, doesn't matter. The males will have 2 little spiky-looking things that are clearly not fins. It's 2 appendages in the exact same spot that would be the anal fins, but they're not fins. And that is a male. So if you want to only get male live bears, and that way you don't have to worry about always having issues with overbreeding and whatnot, that's what you want to look for. You can go as a rough guide by the dorsal fin, and that can kind of narrow it down. But if you think one's a male, you can positively identify it as a male by checking the anal fin. If it's got fins, it's a female. Doesn't matter what the dorsal fin looks like. If you see rounded fins around the anal vent, it's or the cloaca is what it technically is. It's a female if it's got fins. So remember that. All right, everybody. It looks like we're done with the conversation for the night. So stay tuned next week. You never know what's going to happen. My wow, you got them going that long without genetic issues. That's wild. I always start to get one or two that has a crooked back, and once you start to see a few that turn up with the crooked back, you just have more and more showing up. Mike, you're coming in the last second. I was just wrapping it up and getting ready to say goodnight. That's interesting. Maybe I just had one, maybe I just had one that had that as a recessive gene, and after enough breeding, that recessive gene came out, and once it was out, it just started, being carried through the population or something. But I always thought that was a fairly typical experience. If you had guppies that were just breeding and breeding and breeding and breeding, eventually you're going to start getting genetic issues with them or whatever. But maybe not. Maybe that was just me. So anyway, this coming week, we will do our Wednesdays live stream as usual. Again, I think I'm done with the tripping on the live stream. 3 with crooked spines out of about 1,000 brood. Wow. Prone to weak genetics, yeah. I would assume so. Now, I don't know. I think probably even if you go to your good fish store, they're going to be the same sort of suppliers or the same original source, but I don't know. Anyway, we will be here for Wednesday as usual, like I was saying. Even though I do have some chocolate bar left upstairs in the refrigerator, I don't know when I'm going to eat that, but I don't think we're going to do that on live stream anymore. When I get the vape, the mushroom vape in, I did order a mushroom vape, and I also ordered a bottle of mushroom syrup that I can mix in with my coffee or whatever I want to do with it, and then I can, or you can sip it straight out of the bottle. But those will not be here until the 8th, I think, because I got the free shipping. So it's like 8 to 10 business days or something is when they said the order will get here. And I placed the order today. So we've got all next week and then probably the week after that before I even get those products. So I have ordered them, but don't get too excited about, seeing me doing mushroom puffs anytime in the next couple of live streams. That'll be a few live streams down the road. But as we move into the colder months and the darker seasons, and who knows where we'll go from there. I feel like my my midlife crisis or whatever the fuck I'm going through right now is just slowly unfolding in front of all your eyes, and you get to watch it in real time. It started with OnlyFans. Now I'm on a mushroom kick, and so God, you come down here one day, I'll be having a fucking blonde wig and my ear pierced. I got my stuff, Billy, at a place called Tree House. It's TRE House. But you can start by just doing a Google search of mushroom, psychedelic mushrooms for sale. That's what I did. But the place I went to is called Tree House, or Trey House, however you want to pronounce that. It's TRE House. And I can personally vouch for their chocolate bars. Their chocolate bar is the real deal. I haven't had any of their other products yet, but I did order the vape and I ordered their syrup. So that's what I was just talking about. In a couple of weeks, we'll get the vape and the syrup. So far, I've got the chocolate bar, and I ate 6 squares, and I had a fucking trip that lasted over 10 hours. It was a long fucking trip, and it was pretty intense. I wasn't tripping hard, but it was a pretty intense trip for what I ate. It was less than half the chocolate bar. I still have 9 squares left, and I'm reluctant to eat all 9 of those at once. I think what I'm going to do is eat 4 and 5, or possibly 3, 3, and 3. But I definitely don't think I want to eat all 9 of those in one go. So we'll see. We'll see. So tune in next Friday if you're not a member. And if you are a member, yeah, I found you always get mushrooms on the Amazon too. Don't ever buy mushrooms on Amazon because it's going to be like those health food mushrooms like lion's mane and stuff like that. You're not getting psychedelic mushroom anything on Amazon. So don't buy any mushroom product off of Amazon unless you're looking for that lion's mane health food, capsules or whatever. If you're looking for psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, go to that place called Treehouse. And there's a couple other stores out there that actually sell mushrooms, like dried mushrooms in bags. But I can't remember the name of any of them because I wasn't really interested in that. But the Treehouse place or Treehouse or however you pronounce it, I can vouch for it. It's the real deal. It really is. So tune in next Friday if you're not a member. If you want to be a member, go below any one of my YouTube videos, not the Patreon. But go underneath of my YouTube videos, you'll see a button that says join. You can join the YouTube channel for $2.99 a month, and you'll get access to a Wednesday members only live stream. And you will also get access to my Discord server and badges and emojis and stuff like that you can use. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, I will see you all publicly next Friday evening. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I hope you had a good time. I know I did, and I will see you soon. Good night.